Welcome to The Perfect Storm, where we talk about current news in the light of Bible prophecy. Justin, welcome.
Hey, Phil.
Kyle, how are you?
I'm doing okay.
Nice hat.
Oh, thank you for mentioning the hat.
The Battle of the Hats today.
New
if
hats.
you are, want you to like this on YouTube. If you're watching, go and look at the hats. We're both wearing different hats, but made by the same company. Got an exciting,
Same country.
exciting company. Got an exciting program today, don't we, Justin?
We always do, Phil. A lot of things going on in the world, as we say, every week. It gets more intense every time we come on here, mate.
Yeah. Kyle, how's your marriage?
Thanks for asking. It's going all right, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going well.
In marriage, there's a lot of compromise, isn't there?
You're telling the story,
Yeah,
mate.
there's compromise in marriage.
To hear this.
In marriage, there's compromise, and
Okay.
there's a lot of marriages around the world. You know, America has relationships with different people.
Okay, yeah, that's where
And
we're
what's
going.
happening is there's not a lot of compromise. There's trauma, and there's it's called tariff trauma.
Yeah.
Let's start with this tariff trauma. What's going on? And the initial list had something about.
For starters, the tariffs are not affecting my marriage. So let's clear that up
Not
first
yet.
and foremost.
Yeah, that was a segue.
Oh, okay.
Who's paying tariffs? And initially, Russia didn't get one. Talk us through that.
I think Norfolk Island has got one.
And they were making anything.
Russia has sanctions, so they didn't need tariffs anymore because they're getting sanctioned again, another lot of sanctions.
23,000 something sanctions.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's worse than a tariff.
Much worse.
Let's start with what is a tariff in simple terms. In simple terms, tariff is a tax that a government places on goods coming into or going out of a country, often used to make imported goods more expensive and encourage people to buy local products. I noticed this. Let's leave America out of the picture for a second. I noticed this when if I import something to Australia more than $1,000, there's customs, duties, taxes, and tariffs.
Ridiculous amount. 15% or some ridiculous.
5% for this, and then it's 10% for something else. It adds up to at least 15% in Australia.
Yeah.
And Finland, when I lived in Finland, if I had a friend of mine, Tom, who you know, he sent me some macadamias. He lived on a macadamia farm. He sent me a bag of these beautiful macadamia nuts. It was valued at 50 Australian dollars, and I had to pay another 20 euros to get that thing released.
Expensive macadamias.
Just to get it into Finland. So they charge you everything. My mum, I forgot one of my Bibles. My mum sent it in the post to me. I had to pay import taxes and tariffs
On
to
a
get that
used
Bible.
Bible.
On a used Bible, used goods, my own stuff. I had to pay taxes to get it in the shipping from overseas.
Wow.
So that was Finland without any of this, and that was a heavy. It was like 20% or something ridiculous.
We're paying it here already, and the thing about the tariff, like Australia's got a 10% tariff, we're not paying that. It's just when we export a good to America, on the other end, the importer of that good will pay that tariff then, and so it puts prices up for the Americans. And yeah, I everyone's crying about it, but this is the way the world always was until, you know, everything was made in Australia once upon a time when it was a rare thing to have an overseas thing because there were tariffs and it was cheaper to make things here. It's not now.
So the company's importing stuff. So let's take Apple, for instance. They're importing their phones all around the world from China.
Well, they've just announced a $500 billion Apple plant being built in Indiana or Idaho, one of the I's.
It's, Texas, wasn't it?
I thought it was Indiana, but anyway, might be. I mean,
one
that
of
might
the
have been the
I's.
Apple. I mean, the Honda car plant.
Plans.
Trump is doing the best thing for his own country because this is really a clash between globalism, which we've had for 50 years in the world since the Second World War. Basically, everything has been increasingly we make less and less in a rich country and we move all the manufacturing overseas to poor countries because it's cheaper. And the big end of town, the big corporate fat cats are making a fortune And the average worker who gets to work in there is being really, I think, abused.
Did this all start with Obama in 08?
I think what Obama did in 08 was setting the scene for this. This was always going to happen because the populist nationalist movement in America, and it's like we keep saying, it's sweeping the world. When there was all this risk that was taken in leading up to the global financial crisis by big investment corporations and banks, they took all the risk, and then when it failed and their risk was proven to be a genuine risk, Obama steps in and uses taxpayers' money, the government's money, mainly through debts, to bail out the big end of town. And so you have all these corporations just get saved. I lost a house when I lived in the United States during the GFC. It halved its value. It wasn't even worth. My head deacon, my head elder, had a house. He walked away from it because the amount you owe was not even close to what it was worth. They bail at the big end, and the little guy just doesn't get any help at all. What Trump has done has flipped that, and this is actually hurting the corporate world. Now, it's going to put prices up, which will hurt the average Joe, but as a part of this plan he has is to take away income tax for anyone under $150,000. That's their next step that's coming. But this is how they're going to raise money. So it's a big deal. And the big loser in this whole thing is China.
Yep.
China. This is Trump yet again. He's taking on China. He's trying to break the Chinese economy, hoping that government, the Communist Party in China, will fall and they won't have to have a kinetic war, I think.
It's leading towards that. Kinetic war.
I think a kinetic war is coming. Look at them. This week they've got a survey ship. It's really a spy ship off Adelaide and the southern there, looking at all our cables, undersea cables. That's actually where the submarine base is the big deal, I think. But they're planning stuff. They're threatening, bullying. It seems clear their intentions, and they've circled Taiwan this week with a naval blockade, or they haven't actually blockaded, but they're just showing what they can do. That was the day before Trump announced this tariff. So 34%, is it 34%, Kyle, that China's going to have to pay?
Let me pull that up.
In the big scheme, let's think of Bible prophecy here. In the big scheme, the final nation in the world is the US. This is making a big statement because China can manufacture 3 times what American manufacturing. Now, America's the 3rd largest manufacturer on earth. They're still big, but China can do 3 times more what they can do. This is going to change that over time. It won't take long. People are going to stop getting stuff from China, and they're going to bring manufacturing back to the US country. Now, Australia doesn't do so well in this whole deal, but hey, they don't care about us. They care about themselves. This is nationalism. And
so it's up to 54%. So realistically, that looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, if Walmart imports a pallet of $1,000 worth of goods, they have to pay $1,200 initially. That was the original rate, $1,200, and that extra $200 went to America, to the government, I guess.
Imports, yeah.
And then now he's adding 34%, so that another $340. So you're paying $1,500 to the government, and you get your $1,000.
It's gonna
$500 to the government, $1,000 for your goods.
It's gonna get close to saying, well, why don't we just make it here? And the working class people, the losers in this globalism deal, you'll own nothing and be happy, Klaus Schwab famously said. Well, Klaus, I don't like that deal. You might be a billionaire and think that's fine for you and I can just rent from you. No, I want to own my own house. I want to own my own car. I don't want to have to be a slave to someone else. This is slavery. Debt's slavery. So Trump's doing this, putting America first. Now, we're not Americans here. We go, okay, that's going to hurt. But we only got hit with 10%, Phil.
So I've got a question. These factories, let's just take Apple, for instance. These factories are going to start building probably iPhones, computers, iPads, whatever they
Whatever
offer
Apple makes.
in America.
Yep.
Only for the American market.
No.
They're going to then build stuff in China for the rest of the world. Because that are only more tariffs. It's only coming into America where you got the tariffs.
But we are such a minnow compared to America that they're going to end up. America is such a massive market.
Yeah, but you've got the UK, you've got Australia, you've
maybe
got all of Europe, you got.
If we are, and here we're really going into politics today, but if we're smart as a country, we'll do this same thing. We'll start to manufacture again. Because ultimately, because you're getting everything made overseas and you're just consumering, the national debt in America's got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because they can't make things work. Unless you make something, there's no productivity. Unless you have productivity, you really can't genuinely grow wealth. So we need to get back to manufacturing as well. So we should be doing the same, except we don't have any of these sort of... What a risk this is. Trump is a total gangster. He's a polar bear. He's not a grizzly bear. He is just putting everything out there. We live in a really... In your lifetime, this is one of the big events that are happening, that we've seen globalism with the depleting of the West. All of a sudden, in one move... This new president, 2 months into the gig, has just turned globalism on its head and said, no, we're going this way now. We turned the corner.
So let's talk about the playbook. Is there a playbook in play that Trump's following?
A playbook. Oh, the Project 2025 playbook, you could say that they are, I think.
Even if he says he's not.
I don't know anything about that, he says. It's a Heritage Foundation made it, but clearly this has been planned. Peter Navarro went to prison. He is the guy, the economist that's in the White House who came up with this plan. He's out defending it. Peter Navarro. He went to prison because he wouldn't testify against Trump in his January 6th testimony. So... yeah, here we go, folks. It's an exciting time to be alive.
So everything, let me just jump in there. Everything you've said seems to be very countercultural, because when I see the news articles, well, for example, Anthony Albanese himself, he said that these were completely irrational and illogical attacks from somebody who's an enemy, not a friend. Well, how can somebody who manages to win this government for the second time non-consecutively, how is he so illogical on this?
So everyone listening and everyone out there will have all different... Orange man's always bad in the whole world. So just step back for a minute and forget about the personalities. They're all politicians. So Albo's saying what he says to win this election here. Because we're actually not going to suffer too much at all. We do this to them. And then, we have no tariffs.
Yeah, he says we have zero tariffs on America.
Go and buy a Harley Davidson from America today. Just buy a head for it's over $1,000 and see what happens when it gets here. You'll pay import duties, but we don't do it. So,
are you saying he's
step back, look at the big picture, and I'm saying that I can fully understand why America's done this. This in the big scheme, not in today's headlines. And we're all having a panic today. The stock market's down 1,200 points and da-da-da-da-da. It's got to go down. It is inflated ridiculous from fake money that's been injected into the economy. They're deliberately doing this. This is not irrational. This is very logical and rational if you're putting your own country's future first. We haven't lived in that world. We've lived in a world since the Second World War, and other than Phil, none of us were alive then.
Zing.
He's very young for his age. We are. If you're putting your country first, this is very logical. You want productivity to increase so your wealth can increase.
Well, you're looking at jobs. The jobs alone in America. Just
Mate, I moved to America to work in 05, and what your dollar could buy over there then, the price of fuel and the price of a new car. I go back today, and it's about the same as Australia. And it hasn't got better here.
Worse.
It's got so much worse for the average American. The price that they're paying for cars is about what we're paying relatively. And you look at wages and everything. So they've had enough. And that's why there's been this overturning. People think, how could you vote for Trump? Well, you can't afford anything anymore, and their country's getting worse and worse. And they called it, in Obama's time, a managed decline of America. And that's why the red hat and everyone thinks, oh, make America great again, because the other side said, we're going to make America less and the world great. Nuh-uh. And the Bible said there's one superpower at the end. The last big nation that's left is America, and here they come. And this will work for America.
So what we saw in the last election was actually the Bible coming true.
Well, you can't nail it down to these little events, but in the general gist and direction, this is
If Trump
what's going to happen to China.
If Trump didn't win that election, America
I
wouldn't be
reckon there
great.
would have been a civil war.
Yep.
And there still could be. You look at these attacks on Tesla, the attacks, this is very orchestrated, and it's very violent. And they're all saying, we're non-violent, and then they throw a Molotov cocktail into a dealership, and they have bombs at these places. All through history, violence quickly comes to these things, and that's what leads to the overthrow of governments. That's how you have a revolution. They're usually violent. There's a few big movements in history, like the voting rights in the US with, Martin Luther King. King was able to do it through non-violence. Mahatma Gandhi was able to do it through non-violence, but every other thing has been violence.
The French.
And America is a violent country. It's got a violent history. It's a war, and war.
Humans,
So
humans
we'll
in
see.
general have a violent history.
We have a violent history from Cain and Abel onwards. It's very exciting to step back and don't get caught up in the hoo-has of it all. Look at both sides of the argument. I'm presenting a different side to what you're hearing in the media right now. So
it must be wrong.
must be wrong. So argue with me. But so far, and you can go back to the very first program we did on this show, Phil, and rewatch it. It's on YouTube. It's also on the Faith FM website. Go listen to it. Where we got it wrong. It's all coming down the hill, just like if you know the big thing that we're heading to, there'll be all sorts of side roads and little things, but over time we're heading.
Yep.
And there's some very rough water to come. Very, very rough water.
It's actually, these tariffs are actually quite smart, because what they're doing is giving jobs to the Americans, but actually they're not. Well, in a way, you're not really charging China. You're putting tariffs on the big companies that are importing Chinese goods. So, but China loses because these big companies are like, oh, I'm not paying that tariff. I'm manufacturing in the States now.
Yep.
So the tariff's big enough to kind of go, right, well, we've got to manufacture
We're
here.
going to come back here, and it will give the average person who hasn't been to university, they can't afford college, they come from a working class family. They don't have a big prospect of the future with this AI future. You know, the average Joe, what are they going to do for a living? It's a servicing. They can be waiters and everything, where if they can do manufacturing and all sorts of little startups get a go as well, this is, it's very rational. whether you agree with it or not, you can see the argument of why you would do it. And again, there's a big war between China and America. Now, it's not literally a kinetic war today, but it's an information war, it's a cyber war, and now it's an economic war. This is war economically. China cannot sustain a 54% tariff on their goods. He went on yesterday in his speech about the manipulation of currency. That's the way China gets around all their stuff, is they keep keeping their currency low, so it's the cheapest to buy from them. Well, Trump has stopped that. And if they go and do it further, he'll just increase the tariff. So Walmart and the average, what we'd call Kmart here, well, there's Kmarts in America too. We don't have Walmart, but they will say, well, we better start to source it from somewhere else because this is going to keep going up. And then where's China going to sell all its goods and how it affects Australia? We are China's mind. If they want raw materials, they come to us. And the mining that's been so amazing for us, that might taper off somewhat here as we move forward because Trump is really targeting China. Rather than having a kinetic war, he's trying to break them economically.
But America doesn't need to come to us for the mining.
If their manufacturing gets big enough, they will. They'd rather mine it themselves, but we have a lot of we're very efficient, even with a 10% tariff. We're very efficient as farmers, as miners. At a 10% tariff, I'm not sure it's going to knock us around too much. It's really not. Our problem is we don't make anything. We dig it out of the ground and put it on a dump truck, and that's it. We don't make stuff anymore.
Yep.
So Robin Hood, rob from the rich, give to the poor. Is Trump actually doing a bit of a Robin Hood in that he's taxing Walmart, for example, from importing from China, and he's giving to the poor in that there's more jobs, more prosperity inside America for the lower class. And
less tax.
No tax on tips should be coming soon, and no tax for anyone under 150K.
Everyone listening to this in Australia will understand the trade union movement is really aligned with Labor. Like they're the same thing. And if you've worked in mines or even shearers, I've worked in wool sheds when I was a kid, as a rouseabout and everything. There's always a union. And those guys tend to support Labor in elections. Well, in America, that's the same with the Democrats. At Trump's speech, when he gives all these tariffs, he's got all these union workers in their high vis and their caps and stuff in the crowd who would always vote Democrat because they're unions, they're trade unions, and that's how that side of politics was birthed. They've jumped boat and they're with Trump now. This is a realignment socially, economically. And, mate, they're loving it because all of a sudden now we got to find more workers and we can't get enough, so we're going to have to pay them more. And that bloke working in the factory making a Chevy truck used to be made in Mexico. It's all of a sudden come back to Detroit. It used to be in Canada. Now it's come back into Chicago, wherever they're making them. And all of a sudden their wages go up and the dude can go out and buy his own truck now and he can buy his own house. So they are loving this, and he is Robin Hooding it from the big end of town where Walmart is just making their shareholders really wealthy. Expect the share market not to all of a sudden just bounce back from this. It's going to bleed out bad because he's taking it out of the big end of the corporate and he's putting it back in the pockets of the workers. And that is something we have never seen. We have lived in our lifetime, except for Phil, in our lifetime, it has been... Phil's younger than me, folks. I just got to,
But I look old.
I'm the one with no hair, mate.
I should
have the hat on.
I'm welcome to every grey nomads around the country.
Look at me. Look at me. But here he is. He's realigning wealth. That's incredible.
So let's talk about election, because if this is happening, this isn't a landslide in Trump's favour. This is an avalanche.
Could be, but, you don't know. We don't know every little turn and everything. But I tell you what,
Will they ever
we've
get back
never
in?
witnessed this before. This is new for us.
Are you going to go out on a limb and say, will Democrats ever get back in?
I don't think they can win elections moving forward because you got to ask yourself, who is their base? Their base is
That
the
trade.
big end of town, the corporates that give them lots of funding. So what Trump has been doing, his side, and they're playing nasty, is just eliminating all their sources, all the legal firms that the Democrats use. No government funds, no government funds. He's coming after the corporates. And as soon as he won the election, all your big Amazon, Facebook, Meta, or Google, they're all there standing beside Trump. Now, the founder of Facebook, the Meta organization,
Mark Zuckerberg.
is about to go to court over his role in the 2020 election. And this could be jail for this dude.
Really?
It's a week away.
I haven't heard about this.
You better Google this because this is from Trump's first term. And he put $400 million into the election and didn't declare it and everything. And so it's actually about to go to court. And he was with Trump at the White House yesterday pleading that this could be stopped. And you know what? It's going ahead. So the big end of town all of a sudden has a massive panic and thinks, well, we're not necessarily just going to give all our money to the Democrats. Who are the Democrats' base? Because they've lost the trade union movement. They've lost the poor working class. Who is their base? University professors.
And meanwhile, Warren Buffett's on his computer selling all the Apple stocks he can.
He's gone into cash because he's saying the Oracle from Omaha, they call him, don't they, Warren Buffett?
Yeah.
I
Sounds
think
good.
so.
Sounds good.
I've never lived in America, mate.
He's so good at predicting the economic future. He's out of the stock market. He sees the mini Tico Perez, the writings on the wall. Your kingdom has been weighed in the balances and found wanting. And so Trump now they're bleeding out the other side, and the other side know it. They're to the point that they want to start a civil war, a revolution through violence because they probably can't win elections in that environment. It's not to that point yet, but I tell you what, this is mammoth what we are witnessing. And the average person at home, I don't know, they're probably missing. If you just get caught up in the headlines every day, or you're missing the big picture. I think of what the big seismic shift that's going on. It's seismic.
Have you?
Mark Zuckerberg going to court.
I did. I see that. He was apparently at the White House begging for his freedom. Is what they're suggesting. Have you seen that New York Mayor Eric Adams has officially left the Democratic Party?
Well, they tried to jail the dude.
And that's been all cancelled now. That's been wiped out.
Yep. Because the Justice Department is now Trump's. And Eric Adams was against illegal immigration because it's destroying New York City. And so he's now, has he become a Republican or he's
He's gone
left?
independent.
He's independent.
He's stepping slowly. Walking the plank slowly.
This is a realignment, the likes of which in this last election, black males, African-American males in the US voted towards Trump in like a 20% swing. This is a realignment. And as they get good jobs and things they've got more money in their pocket, that's gonna win the day. And they know that. This is a life and death struggle between globalists and nationalists. And I think globalism, the Europeans are just starting to catch on. They're talking a big game, but I don't think they've got anything in the cupboard.
Let's talk through change of subjects.
Okay.
Let's talk through Iran and the bombing that could or may not happen.
I'd rather joke with you, Phil. More happy talk.
It's more fun to joke,
isn't it?
Okay.
Iran.
Well, that's no joke.
I want to ask
What's
Kyle
happening
about
over
the
there?
hat he's wearing. Look at that hat. If you're on the radio, you can't see this orange hat. It says Adventist Community services.
What is that, Kyle?
What is that?
What is Adventist Community Service?
Somebody needed help. We went and mowed their lawn,
Awesome.
cut their hedges.
Did you charge her for it?
No.
It's
You
all
don't.
a service.
It's all
Here
free.
to serve.
Amen.
Here to serve.
Relieve the suffering of the
So
poor.
it's in enabling churches to go out and serve the community.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's good stuff. I like your hat, mate.
Oh,
and
thank you.
if you're on the radio, please go to our YouTube channel, the Faith FM YouTube channel, and like this video. We get more eyes on it if you like it. And tell us about that hat. It's
Yep.
got 1 Corinthians 9:23 on the inside of it there,
yeah.
so you can look that
That's
up.
a Bible
at home.
verse.
That's good.
Let's go back to Iran, mate. We've got to go heavy again, haven't we?
Iran.
So what I saw about this topic was that Russia said don't do it. So on the surface, I'll tell you what's on the surface. Justin can tell us what the intel agencies have told him in his morning briefing.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I live in Canberra, mate.
Trump hasn't revoked your security clearance yet, has he?
No, he's a gangster.
They said that Putin said don't do it. Don't touch their nuclear infrastructure. Don't bomb them. Don't attack them. You know, it sounds like Putin is fronting up for Iran, doesn't want them to be attacked. I understand that, you know, from the news, I understand that Trump wants to attack Iran because they're the ones that are funding the Houthis, and the Houthis are apparently terrorizing the shipping channels and stuff like this. So why is Iran trying to disrupt shipping channels? That's what I want to know. And what's really going on between America, Russia, and Iran.
Okay, and this is according to Justin and me alone. This is not
Sure.
Faith FM
This
or
is not-
even these other two guys.
This is
don't
not the
agree
briefing
with
that
me,
you got
so-
this morning.
Yeah.
No, nothing like that.
Okay.
So it's about Israel. This is all about Israel. The shipping channels, 40% of all that shipping is Europe. America doesn't have a lot of interest in that shipping channel because it doesn't affect them too much. The Suez Canal, is for Europe. They've got the Panama Canal that affects America more. They're getting through the oceans there, so it affects them a little. But this is Israel. The Iranian, as we've said before, the Shia form of Islam, and it's a theocracy. The government is a theocracy, like the chief, their pope, is running the country, and he is literally running the country. They want to destroy Israel, take it off the face of the map. They're making a nuclear weapon not because we'll defend ourselves someday with it. No, it is to destroy Israel, and that's just how it is. They want to take out Tel Aviv. They want to leave Jerusalem because it's the Al-Aqsa Mosque and all that Islamic stuff that goes on there. Their history is shared, so they want to get the rest of Israel so it doesn't exist. That's their goal as a country. So Trump has said this is the only modern president who's not started a war.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably going to
Start a war?
break that record because he has said that we cannot have a nuclear-armed Iran, and they appear to be, it depends who you listen to, months away. Some people I listen to say they already have one, but their ability to make one is getting very, very close. So the word on the street is that Putin is actually talking to Iran on Trump's behalf. Putin has used the Iranians big time in Ukraine for all their little motorized drones and a lot of shells, 300,000 rounds and all this stuff all comes from Iran. Because Iran fought with Iraq for a long, long time, and they have those old-fashioned cannons and weapons. But they've shot down a number of US drones over the years and stolen technology, and they have some good stuff. They've got a three-way alliance with China, Russia, and Iran. Iran's a big, significant military power in the Middle East. Trump has to either get them to step back, and he's hoping Putin will help him do that, or he's going to have to bomb them. He doesn't ever want to put troops on the ground. He hates the thought of sending in soldiers. That may come, but let's pray none of this happens and they just all step back. But they've landed the satellite photos show 6 B-2 stealth bombers parked on the runway at Diego Garcia, this little island way down 2,500 k's from the Iranians, right down in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Those guys carry really special ordnance, bunker busting stuff, because they have to get to the weaponry. They can easily take out the nuclear sites where they have the nuclear power stations, where they get the leftover spent fuel rods that they use to make weaponry, nuclear weapons out of it. But the missiles and all the stuff they have to deliver it is in underground bunkers that would make your eyes water how sophisticated they are. Massive blast doors. So even if you get in this end of the tunnel, there's all these blast doors to stop it getting to the other end. Their ability to get in there is actually really questioned. And the only way that they're sure they could is to use a nuclear weapon themselves, the Americans, to actually bust through into those bunkers. So this is super, super serious. If they start bombing, they have to end it. They can't half do the job, or Israel will not exist. They've got such good intercontinental ballistic missiles. They've got everything.
There's a quick one here I'll just read. You tell me whether or not this matches your security briefings or not. Trump confirms that Iran wants to have direct talks. Trump does not want war with Iran. However, Trump is willing to flex his muscles and posture to create urgency and force Iran to bend the knee. This is power politics, and Trump is not afraid to use his power of being the president. If he has leverage, he is going to use it. So for those of you screaming that Trump wants war with Iran, you're mistaken. Trump wants Iran to make a deal about ending their nuclear program and is exercising his leverage, which is power. The same can be said for Greenland and Canada. Trump doesn't want to invade them. He's applying maximum pressure to create a sense of urgency, which forces a negotiation and gives him leverage.
I agree 100%, but here's a kicker at the end of that story. Iran has doubled down. They took a tanker since then. They are saying we're going to bomb Diego Garcia. Now, they might be just talking tough, but they're apocalyptic in their view of the world, and they're willing to build their own nuclear weapon to blow up another country. These guys don't play. So the problem with talking tough is you might have to be tough. And he's brought in all those. The fact to tell is they have them sitting on the runway while the satellites are going over.
It says breaking aerospace force. Iran's aerospace force has no ballistic missile capable of reaching Diego Garcia from Iran.
No.
3,800 kilometers.
That's why
their threats about targeting the airbase and the 7 US B-2As there are empty. They currently have absolutely no capability of targeting.
No, but what they do have is what they can do to Israel. And they said, the head of the military said, there's 50,000 US troops within striking distance of Iran, and that's a fact. All those flags you showed last week around Iran, they can bomb all them, and we can take out 50,000 American troops. So they're all talking tough. We pray, and at home, I know most of the people that listen to this program are praying people. Even if you don't, please pray for this situation that it wouldn't escalate. Persian people have a rich history. Just because there's a death cult running the country now doesn't mean that everyone in there would buy into that ideology. There's like 70% of the country don't buy into that, but their leaders do. It's like communist China. There's 90 million communists and there's 300 million Christians in China. Like there's more Christians than there are communists. So when you think of China, we think, oh, communists and bad. There's a lot of good people in these countries, and we pray they would never go to war. But when you've lined up 2 aircraft carriers, the French have one there, I think the British might have one there, and now they've got these B-2 stealth bombers. They've flown to Diego Garcia, a British airbase there in the islands, and you can put that photo up. You can see they've parked them on the runway to make a statement. That thing you read, I'd agree with that. This is Trump being tough. But
he's put them right out on the runway so that
so they can see. Yeah,
can
they're
really get a
actually
good look
there.
at them.
Yeah, well, that's
And this is a British airbase.
Diego Garcia is this tiny little island because China's so bad doing it in the South China Sea, but the other side's been doing it forever everywhere, where it's right out in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Very convenient.
There's a little map up here.
Yep, that's it. And they can fly to Iran in one of those things. They've got a ton of refueling planes and everything. They can go anywhere on Earth, really, those planes, when you've got refuelers. But these are serious pieces of weapon. I saw one of those at the Rose Parade one year. We went to the Rose Parade and they flew one down a couple of 100 feet over the whole parade. Oh, wow. When you actually see the size of these things, even if they don't drop bombs, you'll nearly die when you just see one thinking it's coming for your country. They're serious bit of kit.
Quite large, aren't they?
Wow.
well. Any questions on
There is a bit.
the chat, mate?
I'm just seeing how wide a B-2A stealth bomber is. 52 meters wingspan. That's quite large.
Huge.
52 meters.
How long's a football field?
120, isn't it?
Yeah,
100
something
meters.
like that. It's half a footy field.
That's huge.
It's a half 100-meter sprint, if you think about it.
It's a massive aircraft.
Yep.
And it's not like any other plane. It doesn't have a body. It's a big flying wing. And they're black. Like they really come in like a big bat flying over you. It was something to behold. I'll never forget it.
Questions coming from last week. God's kingdom, or comments maybe from John. God's kingdom is about to solve all the problems, not Elon Musk or any other human. We all need to focus on the kingdom. All genuine Christians are neutral, no involvement in politics.
Yeah, we did that one, didn't we?
I don't know.
I talked about that last week.
Apologies. Lots of people saying thanks for the Bible marking guide. Some people not getting their Bible marking guide quick enough and requesting another one.
Okay.
Apologise for that, Mark.
We better offer that again, eh?
We'll sort that out. We hope we don't run out of stock before the new order arrives. Oh, Carolyn. Carolyn, we see you. We know you haven't got it yet. We'll get that to you. Look for Sanhedrin letter to Trump about Noahide laws. Matthew 33:39.
Not going towards Noahide today.
I don't. I've never heard of that.
Oh, well, I have, and we're not going to.
Okay. Thanks.
Just while you're looking, Kyle, text the word study to 0482 082 876 and you will get yourself that study guide.
Or you'll send us a message to say it hasn't come yet.
Yeah.
Send us some messages and we'll get on to the...
I'll have to ask who actually watches those SMSs because I haven't been. My apologies.
I know we do need to restock in them. I know that could be the issue.
Okay. Daniel 11, Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon shall escape. I believe this verse speaks about deceived people of the faith and at the end of time who have a little light but are living up to the light that they have. What say ye?
I'm not going to argue with that one. It's been a big puzzle forever because you've got these forces, the king of the south, king of the north, and then that little statement about Edom and Moab and all that, and it kind of like they're not a part of whatever else is going on. And I think that's probably a fair interpretation, what they've offered up there, because it's one that I have sort of scratched my head over many, many times. I've heard different people interpret it differently. And it's a spiritual application, and it's not literally Edom and Moab in the Middle East. Petra and all those places are Edom. It's not there. It's a spiritual application for these last days, and that could be close to it. They're kind of cousins to God's people.
I'm about to sneeze back here. So here's a challenging one for you, knowing what we talked about last week. It says, okay, we are on the side of Jesus, no worries. Is Jesus on the side of the Democrats or the Republicans? If we let Muslims and communists take over our societies and don't put up a fight outside of studying the Bible, there won't be any Christians left in the end of days. Christianity's best argument is to show how great a Christian society is. Christianity built civilization. It is not a doomsday cult that waits for the end. It consists of custodians of God's creation. Why not act like it?
Amen.
If preaching and Bible study would have been the only things Christians would have ever done, we would all be praising Muhammad right now. Just because heaven is promised, let's not leave the earth to the wolves. What I am wondering is, what do you guys suggest we do? Not just spread Jesus' message, but also retain the ground already gained.
Yeah, it's easy to sit here in our little radio studio and talk about all these things, but when there are been wars, well, let's leave the religious wars out of it and just go Adolf Hitler. Clearly, something needed to be done. And clearly, God has used military force in Scripture. David, I've just been watching on Prime Video this House of David. I want to promote that to everyone listening. It's excellent. David and Goliath, and he literally took the guy down. So there's a real argument for that, and it's easy to have, like, we just give Bible studies to everyone, but you need police, you need fire, you need a military, or you will be treated badly. And America has acted as a great savior to the rest of the world for most of its history. And in the Second World War, England would have fallen without America. There's no question about that. And all of Europe had fallen. The Russians and the Americans come in from either side in the end, but I tell you what, you can't just sit on your hands when those things are going on. So we've got to really, what's been said there is true, but what we should be seeking is a freedom and an open society where we do have freedom of thinking and freedom of speech.
How hard do we fight for that, bud?
If someone wants to be a Muslim and they do what they do, I'm happy for them to do that. Mm-hmm. But for when they want to bring in Sharia law or something in a Western country, I think is disgraceful and it should never happen. And we should push back against that with every bit of political, every bit of thing that we can, because you can see where that leads and what it does and the way women are treated. It's horrendous. So, yep.
So politically, we're not neutral when it comes to some things.
When it comes to freedom. And Jesus is not for the Democrats or for the Republicans. He's for every human being. Mm-hmm. He's for anyone in any state of religious conviction. But he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. That is a fact. That won't change. And we should have a society that enables people to follow those words.
Hopefully that's satisfactory for that commenter.
I like pushing back on what we've been saying.
Because it all comes to the road when you start, when the government starts enforcing things that go against the Bible or go against your belief.
Freedom.
I think you'll see a whole heap of people stand up and go, no, we're going to tolerate this. And to the cost of their life.
Yep. And remember, we're discussing the pointy end of history here. The pointy end, where it gets very specific on what's going on. And what Phil just said about, we're going to have freedom and if it's even like the martyrs were able to take their stand in Western countries to be persecuted for their faith in the Scriptures, it's not just outside forces. What we're saying, the Dark Ages and what happened coming out of that is really going to get repeated again in a short, not over that big 1,000 years, a short little Dark Ages comes right before Jesus arrives, where freedoms are taken.
Are we helping that by not standing up politically?
Well, I think I stand up. I think I influence things, but I'm trying to, if I've got a Muslim neighbour, I'm going to be kind to them and I want to show them why the Bible's true.
And so there's a number of conversion stories and dreams and...
Yeah, the alternative is you go around shooting people. I'm not sure that that's how Jesus acted when he's on earth. He seems to be called teacher. Now, he's the captain of the Lord's army as well, and he has a literal fight in heaven in Revelation 12, where it says there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon and his angels fought. That's a real battle. So battles are real, but our first port of call should always be to convince and to love and to do the right thing by people. But that means sometimes it will lead to these terrible conflicts. And there was a war in heaven. There's certainly going to be wars on earth.
Well, thank you all. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Kyle. It's been another great day. And until next time, press the subscribe.
We need an outro.
Do it. You need to.
What's
need
the
to
saying
do.
at the end of the show?
Well,
This
on
is
the
the
radio, they hear nice music
Ah,
and
okay.
everything.
this
We
is
don't
the
get to
perfect
get
storm.
that on YouTube.
We should get some nice music in here.
Thanks for listening.
See you later, guys.
Bye.